Hey, good morning, beautiful people. So, a little educational video. Look on the screen. Here is what has been found to be the first Black woman astronaut on a spacecraft, dated to be 1.6 billion years old. Black woman astronaut. You can Google it. Some call it the spacecraft of the gods. You can also check out William Rutledge. He's retired. Not sure if he's still alive, but as last reported, was retired, and he provided information on this. I think it's a fact that everyone should know, but I doubt everyone does know because I haven't always known about it. But yeah, Black woman astronaut, 1.6 billion years old. An astronaut. You've seen the movie, I believe Kevin Costner put out or produced, Hidden Figures. You go to NASA because we went. Didn't say anything about the women that made it happen. And I want to show you this because we've endured a lot of things, which we still endure now. But we've done some great things. And I think we are capable of continuing that. So here just gives information about it. But I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you this. The first Black woman astronaut, female, that was found in a spacecraft 1.6 billion years old. And we should not be surprised. Why? Check out the National Geographic. Who is on the screen? Mary Jackson? What is she doing? Mary Jackson spent 34 years on the job at NASA as a mathematician and what? Aeronautical engineer. Let's go ahead and get to the article. There are many women ahead of us that have done wonderful work. And I think we need to make sure that our girls are introduced to this. Okay? So let me go ahead. I want to read the article here. So here we have a Black woman. It says, history pictures show the hidden women of space race, gifted in math. These African American women are shattering stereotypes during the earliest days of NASA's mission to the moon and beyond. And before we get started, I don't need you in the comments hollering about biracial, because we already know. A Black parent and a white parent, to us, biracial. The rest of the world, sad to say, with this so-called one-drop rule that they've made up, they come up with, oh, just Black. So it's not about that. At the end of the day, Black women is how they're labeled. But this one here, I'm aware, because it's always happened with somebody, oh, they're biracial. That's not the point. Women can do great things. So we already know, again, one Black parent, one white parent. To me, and most of us, it's biracial. But they're pretty much labeled no matter what. And no matter what, other people just labeled as African American. And I don't have a problem with that. That's not a big deal with me. Okay? So let's see here. Here is Katherine Johnson, and she's photographed at her desk at NASA Langley's Research Center with a globe or celestial training device. As a girl growing up in rural West Virginia, Katherine Johnson loved to count. She counted everything: the steps between her house and the road, the number of dishes she washed, anything that could be quantified. Johnson started high school at the time she was 10. By 18, she finished college, where she excelled as a math major and was sometimes the only student in the hardest courses offered. She was, by all accounts, brilliant. That brilliance, which is chronicled in a recent book and the upcoming movie Hidden Figures, would eventually help the United States win the space race, a geopolitical competition that peaked with the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. I thought it was Apollo too. But in the first half of the 20th century, Johnson was penned in by stereotypes about her race and her gender, as well as Jim Crow laws that mandated the segregation of African Americans. With limited options, Johnson initially took a job teaching math, French, and music at Virginia public schools, since that was, she said, the obvious thing to do with her talents. Quote, "You could be a nurse or a teacher," end quote, she said in a video interview with Makers. Then in 1953, a small group of human computers at Langley Research Center in Virginia came calling. Mechanical computers were just beginning to emerge in research labs, so to perform complex calculations, most teams primarily relied on skilled people who were nimble minded and facile with numbers. In aeronautics, labs across the country, these jobs were often filled by women. And here we have a photo. And as you can see, two, possibly three African American women. So there's Dorothy Vaughn, far left. She worked in Langley's segregated West Area Computing Unit and was promoted to lead the group, making her the first African American supervisor at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the precursor to NASA. Johnson applied for a job as a computer at Langley and went to work under the direction of Dorothy Vaughn, the first African American woman to supervise the center's cadre of human calculators. Also among them was Mary Jackson, who would go on to become the first female African American engineer employed by NASA. After just 2 weeks, Johnson was transferred to the Flight Research Division, where she and her colleagues were eventually tasked with helping NASA meet the challenge posed by the Soviets with the 1957 launch of the Sputnik 1 satellite, followed by the 1961 orbital flight of Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space. And I believe that's pronounced Yuri Gagarin. In 1961, Johnson calculated the plotted the trajectory Alan Shepard space capsule, which followed as it briefly left Earth. The next year, Johnson calculated and plotted the path astronaut John Glenn would take when he showed a restless, anxious country that it too could send a person into orbit and meet the Soviet challenge. And I believe John Glenn was in Florida, or lived in Florida. After circling the Earth 3 times, Glenn safely splashed down, but he reportedly was not willing to even begin his journey until Johnson had verified the calculations produced by a new breed of robotic computer. Her computations matched the machines, and the rest is history. And here we have Miss Mary Jackson, again, who spent 34 years on the job at NASA as a mathematician and aeronautical engineer. Such brilliance. In 1969, Johnson helped send Apollo to the moon, which is a mission she's most proud of. "I computed the path that would get you there," she told Makers. "We told them how fast they would be going, and the moon would be there when you got there." Johnson retired from NASA in 1986. And over decades of service, she played a role in every space program the agency launched, including the Space Shuttle program. In 2015, President Obama awarded 97-year-old Johnson the Presidential Medal of Freedom. "It was my job," she said simply, "and I did my job correctly and well. But the truth is, it wasn't easy." Here we have Melba Roy, who headed the group of mathematicians who worked on a pioneering communications satellite experiment for NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in the 1960s. So here is Miss Melba Roy. When Johnson started calculating celestial trajectories, the civil rights movement was still gaining momentum, and the group of female computers Vaughn led was sequestered in a room with a sign outside that read, "Colored Computers." Still, Langley not only recognized the expertise of these women and offered them jobs based solely on their abilities, but trusted them with the astronauts' lives. Langley was an unusual place, says Bill Barry, NASA's chief historian. It was progressive, he says, and populated with scientists and engineers from all over the country who cared more about hard data than societal constructs. To some degree, They can get away with floating social conventions of Tidewater, Virginia. Because of this, the conditions were ripe for this stereotype shattering anomaly to happen. Even now, Johnson, Vaughn, and Jackson stand out as role models for women like Christine Darden, who climb atop their shoulders to become one of NASA's preeminent engineers and a leading expert in supersonic flight. Supersonic flight. Wow. Here we have Christine Darden, who works in the control room of a Langley wind tunnel in 1975. Today, women, and especially minority women, continue to battle prejudice in the fields of mathematics, science, and engineering, and struggle to prove that their brains are every bit as good as a man's. It's a frustrating reality, but one that can be changed. We hope that this story will inspire many young people to pursue education and their dreams, Barry said. After all, if there is one thing clear from our history, it is that you never know what kind of package your most brilliant employees might come in. And here they are. Look on the screen, look on the screen. Excellence, pure excellence. So I hope things like this here we should share with our young people, with our daughters. I don't care if they're 5 and on. They need to know, especially as Black women, what greatness looks like. They need to know that they are special, loved, and respected, and that the greatness is within them. And sometimes we as grown women, we forget. Sometimes we as grown women, we forget. The greatness is there. So we need to share these stories with our young women. And I bring this so we can do that. And hopefully it can also be a reminder. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, Melba Roy, Christine Darden. These are women that our daughters should know about. They should know more about these women than some rapper who's not giving positive energy. And we need to make sure that we instill in them that greatness has been accomplished. Greatness is what is expected. And that greatness is part of their destiny. These type of role models is what we need to be projected to our children, especially females. So anyway, not your normal video, but again, we need to see things like this. We need to be reminded of the greatness that was before us, and we need to be reminded of the greatness that is in us. Simply Said here on YouTube when I'm out. Love you guys. Bye.